Welcome everyone to Spring 2018. I hope you, that's a good sign. I take that as a good sign. I do hope that you've had some time away from campus, some time to disconnect from the rhythms of the university and to focus on other things for a short time. I know I have. Rick and I spent some time. Our family celebrated Christmas a little bit early, so I went to Iowa to be with my family, and he went to South Texas. And then we joined up and spent some time in New Orleans and had a very good time with a lot of sleeping and eating and just a little bit of drinking. But it was very enjoyable, but I'm very happy to be back. And actually, I was ready to come back, and we started up. The crew and we started up, I think it was on Tuesday of last week, so it felt good. A few individuals I'd like to introduce this morning before we actually launch into the content, but I would like to recognize the men and women that I work with on a regular basis and often, and this is members of the President's Cabinet. So if you're a member of the President's Cabinet, would you please stand so we can recognize you? Members of the Cabinet. I spend an enormous amount of time with them seeking their counsel, and I appreciate all the work that they do and the hours that they give me and that they give you and the university. I'd also like to recognize the university leadership team. This is the expanded leadership team that has elected officials that represent our large constituent groups, including Vicki is with us today and representing classified staff, and Derek, you're here representing administrative professional group. We have Margie Massey, who is representing our faculty group, and I don't know if our Associated Student Government President Jake is here, but he's usually a part of this team. So would all members of the university leadership team please stand? Again, this is a group that I depend on heavily. We meet regularly and we do a lot of work, and much of the work that we did last semester is the result of this group, and the work that's in front of us is also generated from much of the advice and the counsel that I get from the University Council. Two other groups I'd like to recognize today is those who are a part of our athletic division. Would you please stand so we could recognize you? All members of the athletic staff, coaches, there's a lot in the back. I appreciate all of you being with us today. Our athletic division represents over 15% of our students are athletes, and it's important that they be a part of our conversation this morning. And also, if I have anyone from facilities, custodial staff, physical plant, facilities, would you please stand so we can recognize you? The men and women who make, all custodians of physical plant, groundskeepers. This is the group that really works out of sight, out of mind to many of us, but without them, we would have less of an experience here for ourselves and our students. So I appreciate all of them being with us today. Behind me is the title of our presentation today. I'm calling it Chapter 2. Last semester we engaged in Chapter 1. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Chapter 1, where have we been, and then where are we going with Chapter 2. We are writing our story. If you'll recall at the beginning of the last semester, I kind of got the impression that a lot of people have given us a story that we have bought, but it's not our story, and I'm very much interested in us writing our story and communicating that story loudly to a variety of different audiences, and we are in the process of doing that. So today it's about Chapter 2. But before I talk about Chapter 2, I would like to talk about some transitions that are currently taking place that are important to the university. Dr. Bruce Raymond has started as our new interim executive vice president of academic affairs and our provost. And you're going to be hearing from our new interim provost in a few minutes at the end of today's presentation, and he will be talking with you about some of the ideas that he has and some of his priorities. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Krzeminski. He's the new executive director of research and sponsored programs, and the director of our Institute of Cannabis Research. Rick, I saw Rick. Rick is right down here. Rick, I was in the paper today, is keeping busy with new legislation that's going to be impacting our Institute of Cannabis Research and just a variety of different grant opportunities and generating additional revenue for the university. So I'm delighted to have Rick in that capacity. Dr. Kristen White-Davis is our new Director of Extended Studies. Kristen begins officially, I think, today, and we're delighted to have her with us. Miss Emily McElwain is our new Director of Student Recreation Center. Emily, where's Emily? Back right here. Emily, welcome to our campus. Emily comes to us as from the University of Missouri in Columbia. We're delighted to have her with us and her family joining us in Pueblo. Dr. Joe Fronta is the new Associate Dean of Nursing. It was a national search, and Joe emerged as the candidate most qualified for that role. And then Mr. Joe Folda will be transitioning at the end of this semester, moving into retirement, and we will be celebrating Joe's employment history with us at a later time, celebrating his contributions and work. There's one other person up here that I wanted to mention, and that's Dr. Abai Shah in the front, who will be taking over as the interim dean of the Hassan School of Business. Whenever there's a transition, there's a ripple effect. So we'd like to welcome you to your new role. If we could give these individuals a round of applause, I would appreciate it. Okay. I should also mention we have two searches that are ongoing. We have a search for a new provost, and that is being chaired by William Folkstad. And he's got an impressive search committee who is working. We've received over 60 applications for that position. They are narrowing it down, and I believe they've narrowed a group they will be doing Skype interviews and eventually bringing candidates to campus in mid-February. We hope for the new provost to begin May 1. That obviously is going to be negotiable, but they are working very aggressively to do a national search for a new provost. So very excited about that. We also have a search going on for our athletic director. It's a national search, and it has attracted a number of applications. Carl Speaker is heading up that particular search, and our new athletic director is scheduled to begin, although it'll all be negotiated early summer is when that individual will be joining us. So wanted to keep you posted about two searches that are very important. The athletic director and the provost work very closely together to make sure that our students are doing well. There's another group of individuals I wanted to recognize today, and it's a group that we're calling the Presidential Fellows. We had 24 individuals applied to become a Presidential Fellow. And I wanted that surprised us. I was thrilled to get the spreadsheet from Nicky Whittaker with 24 individuals with very impressive resumes and cover letters articulating their arguments why they would want to be a Presidential Fellow. The Presidential Fellows are funded. I negotiated a startup package when I became the president for a special assistant to the president. It was 3 years of funding coming from the system. And rather than going external for this year, I decided to use those monies to help with one of our university priorities, which is to develop our people. And so the cabinet and I decided that we would reach out and we would put out a call for those who might be interested in serving the university. We have 5 different projects that need some help, and we are working with visioning and training this semester. And what we did with the applicants is we spent several hours looking at the applications and mapping them and their skills to the jobs that we needed done, but also we are trying to stretch and to develop these men and women as well. So the visioning and the training team, this semester we're going to begin some supervisory training, but we're also going to begin a visioning process. And helping us with that will be Donna Souder, Adam Pocius, and Amy Roberts Shaw are the 3 Presidential Fellows. They will be working with a facilitator, an external facilitator that we will be hiring, and I'll be sharing that a little bit later on, who is responsible for our training and our visioning initiatives. And they will also be working closely with me. Derek Lopez and Michael Aragon, I don't know if you, Michael works at our Tower location, soon to be Dr. Michael Aragon. They are going to be working with Bruce, Raymond, our new provost, on our community college partnerships and ways to enhance that. The vice presidents and I, the week after finals, we went on the road and we visited all of the community colleges in our region. We met with the leadership teams and the presidents, and we said we want to be the preferred transfer university. And so out of those visits came a set of initiatives, and this particular group, working along with Bruce, will bring that to fruition. Todos Santos is a facility in Baja Peninsula that we're going to be introducing that this semester. Helping me do that will be Fawn Amber Montoya and Daniel Bowen. Both of these individuals will be working with me. This is it's an opportunity that we have, and you'll be hearing more about that later on, but I'm going to be seeking their help on developing that initiative. Our regional enrollment management plan will be working with our vice president for enrollment management and student affairs, Chrissy Holliday, and that will be David Volk and Jeremiah Blaha. And then compensation concerns, which are ongoing, and you're going to be hearing today from our Vice President for Finance and Administration, Carl Speaker, who'll be sharing some ideas about that. And he will be working with Christy Proctor and Jennifer Quintana on the compensation issues, in addition to the Administrative Pro Council and members of the Faculty Senate. There's a committee, the Compensation Faculty Compensation Committee. So those are the presidential fellows. Each of these fellows will have a job description with a set of outcomes that are going to be expected of them. It's about 10 to 15 hours a week. It begins, we think, on January 15th. Some of these assignments are variable, but they last throughout the summer. And so we're delighted to have these individuals. So if I could have all presidential fellows, if you could stand so we could recognize and thank you for the work that you're about to do. Thank you. So in chapter 1, this is where we spent last semester, was heavy on chapter 1. And first and foremost is I never want to, we could talk about all the initiatives that we did, but most importantly is we provided a high quality teaching and learning experience for our students. And I remember being in an audience where they would always talk about the new initiatives, but we never really talked about the day-to-day hard work that was done. And that's the teaching and the learning and the support that makes that all possible. So in this room, we are responsible for making, number one, we provided our students with a quality learning experience. We engaged and listened to individuals, groups, and community. A number of hours were invested in listening. We expanded our leadership teams to be more inclusive, and we developed priorities and launched initiatives around performance. Each of you might have received a bookmark today just to remind you of what our university priorities are, what our 4 goals are for performance, and some of the strategies that we're using to make that a reality. So that was chapter 1, and I did a little deeper dive on chapter 1, and I found some of this pretty interesting. I just asked the question on emails, and I had people just sharing lots of information with me, but I think this is important. We taught over 51,000 student credit hours, which is a lot of teaching and learning. We generated over 18,000, and the 15,000 faculty office hours. So when I hear the public talking about what is it that faculty do, I can say, well, 15,000 hours in a semester was invested in working individually with students in office hours. We generated, faculty and staff generated over 18,000 kudos and we acted on 3,900 flags. For some of you that is jargon and you don't know what that means, but we have a platform called Starfish. Starfish is a distribution center that allows us to input communication, and it's distributed to individuals, but it allows faculty and staff to talk about how students are doing and where students need help, but it's also a way for us to talk directly with the students as well. And so as an academic community, it's a way for us to, as a community, to take care of our students. So faculty and staff generated over 18,000 kudos. This is, students, you're doing a good job on whatever it is you're doing. And these are tied to specific assignments or interactions. And then we acted on 3,900 flags. What I did not capture there is how many flags were actually raised, which are concerns, but we acted on 3,900 flags, and all of this maps to retention initiatives at the university. We introduced 5 new academic degree programs. We cleaned 2 times per week over 280,000 square feet of classrooms. When you've got limited individuals doing this work, and you're doing it 2 days a week, and you got a pretty large campus, that's a lot of person power to keep our facilities clean. Our admissions office, they completed 411 visits. They hosted 319 students, and these are individual students. They mentioned in an email, this does not include the groups, it's individuals, 319 students. Altogether, we exchanged communications, 161,000 touch points throughout a semester. That comes from our admissions office, keeping track of the work that we're doing. We identified 6 university priorities, 4 performance goals, conducted 3 university forums. We launched 20 Jumpstart Initiatives. And from the CSU system, we were able to procure $3.1 million to help us fund a variety of different initiatives, including the debt on our housing and a new scoreboard, and a variety of other. We didn't quite meet our enrollment goals, so some funds to help us out there. So I'm most appreciative of our support from the Colorado State University system. So with all that said, that is the work that is reflected with those of you in this room today. You are responsible for this. This was our chapter 1, and we did it. We did a fine job, and I'm very proud of you for the work that we did. So thank you. To drill down a little bit further is the Jumpstart Initiatives. We identified 20 of these that map to university performance. These are ongoing. Some of these are completed. Some of these are ongoing. Some of these haven't been started yet. But these 20 Jumpstart Initiatives map to our enrollment, our retention, our graduation, and our placement. And I'd like for you just to read some of those. I don't know if you can read those all the way in the back, so I'm going to kind of walk through a few of these. But we are expanding our nursing program so we can increase our enrollment. We're increasing online enrollments. We're working hard to create a 4-year college-going culture in our region. For the last several years, we have really let the community college define what higher education is for Pueblo in our community. We are going to be stepping up and taking a more active voice on representing higher education in the city of Pueblo, in our region, on the value of a 4-year university. We've increased our financial aid for transfer students. We're also giving some transfer students a housing discount. We are implementing a local marketing campaign, which you will hear about today. We are thinking about a first stop concept. We're implementing eventually wait list. We had an advising month. We've implemented Starfish, a GPA alert program, implementing professional advisors. Again, all of these are in the works or in different stages. We are going to have expanded summer school offerings, eventually developing a task force to examine how we schedule our courses, implement a career advising council, and increasing internship participation. I know Michelle is working on some initiatives to make that happen. We are addressing employee compensation. We're starting supervisory training. The Pueblo Academy concept, I think, will come out of the visioning process. And then finally, develop a task force to examine psychology building. Carl and myself just recently got back from the Capital Development Committee, where we presented a proposal at the state capitol for an $18 million renovation project. And we will know in the months ahead if we were successful in persuading that committee to act on that particular facility. The vision for that facility is to maintain what is in that facility already, but with an expansion, really to have a larger presence around health, science, and wellness. And could it be more of a place where we pull all of those activities together? So that's where we were last semester. if you were to ask me, what are you doing last semester, or what did we do? This is where we put all of our energies in our work. Chapter 2 is this semester, and we have clearly identified 3 big areas that we're going to be focusing on, and we're going to be asking for your help. We are going to be managing compensation, and we've got some ideas about how to do that. Carl's going to introduce some of those ideas, but his fellows will help him with that. We're going to implement a regional enrollment management plan, and Chrissy Holliday will be talking to you today about what does that mean. We have Capture Higher Ed, which is our company that manages our enrollment, but we're going to be doing something more targeted in our region. And then we're going to be facilitating a visioning process that will include as many of you as possible. And I'd like to share a little bit about what that is and what that means. So to go further, I'm going to ask Carl to come up, and he's going to walk through some initial ideas around managing compensation. When he's finished, he's going to pass the mic over to Chrissy, who will walk us through the Regional Enrollment Management Plan. So Carl, it's your floor. Thank you.
Recently, President Mottet had asked me to chair a group to revisit the compensation for the university. Obviously, compensation is hugely important for us to attract and retain competent staff and faculty. We've got to have a compensation plan that is appropriate, that is competitive, and we're going to be moving forward in that direction. When President Mottet asked me to chair this group, he paid me a great compliment. He said, "Carl, you're the best person for the job." And I said, "Really? Why is that?" And he said, "Carl, you are a mentally stable genius." And I got to tell you, I felt great about that compliment until I picked up a newspaper over the weekend, and then I felt a little less excited about that compliment. Nonetheless, I am going to be spearheading this effort. Obviously, we did an equity study a couple of years ago, and you know, in all honesty, I think we learned some things through that study. But the study really, in the end, wasn't fully implemented, and we need to fully implement it. But enough time has passed that we need to make sure that it's updated. And so, with the help of 2 fellows, with Jennifer Quintana and Christy Proctor, we're going to be looking first at the administrative professionals. And one of the things that we've learned is that not all of the job titles are correct, not all of the job descriptions are correct. And as a result, the equity study had some challenges of mapping to find appropriate peers that they should be matched to. On the faculty side, a methodology was used by our consultant to match faculty to SIP codes. Now, that methodology is something that we can replicate, but enough time has passed that we really do need to replicate that to make sure that we're appropriately mapping to current salaries. Then beyond that, we need to actually build a budget that provides for appropriate compensation. And that budget needs to include cost of living adjustments. It needs to include equity adjustments. And we're also exploring the possibility of some university performance-based component that is linked to enrollment. And if we exceed our enrollment initiatives, more funds will be made available for compensation. There's a lot of good work that has been done up to now. There's obviously more good work that needs to be done. This work is not going to be done in a vacuum. This work will be done with the Faculty Compensation Committee. It will also be done with the Administrative Professional Compensation Committee. With respect to the classified staff, we will be following the General Assembly's vote and their approval for a state budget with respect to compensation for our classified staff. So with that, those are the things that we're going to be working on. With the University Budget Board, we'll obviously being kept apprised of our budget process. This is really the time in our year when the budget process begins in earnest. We will be presenting a budget at the February board meeting, and that budget will include funds for compensation. With that, that's the short story, and with that I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy Holliday to talk about enrollment initiatives.
Thank you, Carl. So talking a little bit about our Regional Enrollment Management Plan and what that means. The first thing I want to do is set a little bit of context for you. So we have an overall strategic enrollment management plan that includes all of the sorts of things that we do, both within admissions, financial aid, all the departments that work directly with enrollment, but then also has been expanded to include, for example, what can the academic side of the house do to help impact enrollment. That is overseen by an enrollment management committee. A number of faculty, staff, and students serve on that committee. I know some of you are in the room today. Can we take a second? If you're on the enrollment management committee team with me, would you mind standing just for a moment to be recognized? So thank you. It is a cross-section of our campus representation, and they help us do very important work. So it's a very strategic group of strategies and initiatives that we have. Some of them have already started, and we're working on them and bringing them to fruition. Some we know we need some help with, and some of that includes this regional perspective that we are really working on that the president has mentioned. So this concept of the regional enrollment plan, it involves a few different things. Those are the university track centers, which some of you have heard about this. Those are the placements in the high schools that we are planning to make with the centers in the high schools where we can serve directly high school students and their families. There's also a marketing campaign and then a special event that kind of kicks off this concept of the four-year college-going culture in Southern Colorado. So I'm going to talk about all of those just a little bit for you. The other thing that I think is important that I want to mention, the goals. So we all got the bookmarks when we came in this morning, and you see the goal, for example, for enrollment of 4075 by next fall. The Strategic Enrollment Management Plan also has goals, large goals going through 2020. So by 2020, our plan is to hit 4250 with enrollment. And we also have very granular goals. So what does that mean for freshmen? What does that mean for transfer? And everything within that enrollment management plan is geared to help us get there. What you see here is an example of what another institution has done with something that's very similar to our university track centers. So this is Cleveland State. But we are actually looking to go into the high schools. One site has already been identified. We've been working with District 70, and we have permission to plan to place a site in Pueblo West High School. So we will be working on that. And we're still in discussions with District 60 about what exactly we can make happen there. But these will be centers that are branded with CSU Pueblo. But we will focus on general four-year college-going support for high school students in our area. Different groups on campus who can help impact that and have tie-ins, whether it is TRIO, whether it's extended studies with concurrent enrollment, all of those will be part of these centers, and it will be a way to get us out more into the community, serve the districts. So we won't be serving just the high schools that we're at with the centers. We'll be serving the entire district for those schools in both districts. But our staff will actually be on the high school campuses every day. They will be part of that school's culture, part of their meetings, part of their faculty and staff. And that's really important. That's an integration that we have never had before that has worked well with other models. The people who staff those centers will also be responsible for planning regional events that focus on college readiness, things like scholarship preparation, FAFSA completion, all of that sort of thing, to really start helping the community get prepared for the concept of going to college for 4 years. The next you see here are just some concepts. So I want to tell you these aren't final, but Cora Zalatel has been working really hard with a group on coming up with a marketing campaign. This will be just the first phase of that marketing campaign, because we know whatever we do this spring and summer with visioning will really impact what it is that we put out there to everyone. But we are really focusing first on starting with our local market and our Southern Colorado, and then expanding out to Colorado Springs, and then whatever out of state makes sense based on our enrollment goals. And to really increase our marketing presence, because most of you know we've been slightly absent from the community with marketing and that sort of thing. I don't know about you folks, but every time I listen to the radio or see things on TV, I see and I hear campaigns and commercials from other four-year institutions who are campaigning very hard for the students in our area. So we are taking a step towards that, and it's all going to be enrollment driven as well. So there's the concept, obviously, of just increasing our market presence, making people aware of us as an institution, but also taking action, actually enrolling. And all of the messaging will be geared towards that. So that is something we hope to have a preliminary plan in place by the end of this month, start moving forward with that, and then expand it with a larger splash after the visioning is complete with everything there. And finally, this concept of a large event that will really focus on college-going culture. This is one of the things that the fellows are going to help me with, in addition to the university track centers. We know there needs to be a conversation locally about the need for students to go to a four-year college or university. I don't know how many of you know, but I've started looking at the statistics. Less than 50% of our students in Pueblo County schools graduate from high school and then go on to college. Less than 50%. That's something that we can impact. We can be part of changing that culture. It's not going to change our enrollment next fall, but over time it will. More than that, it's the right thing to do. That is our place in the community. That is something that we should be doing. So we're considering having some kind of an event in the summer that begins placing us as the thought leader for that sort of thing in Southern Colorado and making those changes. We're talking about trying to attract national and state speakers to bring them here and to have a symposium that focuses on the need to generate more of an interest in going to college in the region. And then from that and from what we learn as part of that and the conversations we have with the communities, we can then go forward and start planning programming in the communities. And going out and finding people where they are, not just bringing them to campus, which of course we want to do, not just going into the high schools, which is also very important, but who are the social and community organizations that are already doing work that we can connect with to make sure we're reaching the people that we need to reach and letting them know that college is within reach for them. And it's a dream that's worth having. So those are just a few of the things that I'll be working on in the next few months as well, with some support from others.
Nice job. So thus far, we've talked about, Carl is working on managing the compensation areas of concern and the work that needs to be done there. Chrissy is working on the regional enrollment management plan. And again, you will be seeing some, we are still in conversations with District 60. 70 is much more receptive to our ideas, and I think 60 will be as well. But it's a bit more challenging there, but we hope to have those conversations where we identify a school in 60 where we can open up our university track centers. At this point, I'd like to begin talking about the visioning process that we're going to begin this semester. And I've been talking about this all last semester as well. But we will facilitate a visioning process, and today I'd like to talk about why is it important, what does it look like, who's going to do this work, and how are we going to do this work. This work is extensive. It includes a lot of people. And it includes, a big part is gathering a lot of data, and then analyzing the data, and then developing a set of recommendations. And so I'd like to kind of walk through each of these pieces and kind of describe so you're fully aware of what we're doing and why. But this is a quote from the author is Taylor out of Case. It's a publication that a lot of us get. And having a strong reputation and being known for quality programming and services are the same thing. If people believe you have a strong reputation, they will believe that they know things about you. Conversely, if people don't know about your organization, they will believe you have a weak reputation and there's no third way. And so I had a wake-up call. I'm a member of the PEDCO board, and I was leaving a meeting, and I had a conversation with a member of the PEDCO board, and this person said, you know, I still don't think I know what you guys do out there. And I listened to that. I was ready to kind of like, oh my God, how can you not know what we do? But it's not about me and selling us, it's my listening to him. And so I think there's something there that I think is important. And I learned from listening to this person, where I'm beginning to wonder about how well have we told our story about what it is we do here. And So I'm interested in what do people know about us, what is our reputation, and how does this impact enrollment? I know that the former president, Joe Garcia, went through this process because I met a member who was a part of his advisory board, and he had collected much of this data, and he's going to be giving me more of the institutional memory. When we went through this before with President Garcia about reputation, we're going to be learning new perspectives and perceptions of the university about our reputation. But I think it's also important to go backwards and to find out where we've been in terms of our reputation and how does all of this impact enrollment. So a part of why we're doing this is to do a deeper dive so we do understand our audiences and how do they perceive us. What are we going to be doing? This is probably a little bit more of the why than it is the what. But we are about to develop a differentiated vision that will reposition us in a crowded higher education marketplace. Birth rates continue to decline. Reproduction cycles and patterns are no longer what they used to be. We are having fewer children, and we're having them later in life. Because we're having fewer children and later in life, it's going to impact all sectors of society. And so obviously this is going to be impacting us. And depending on which study you look at, there's going to be a gradual decline until 2021. But I continue to look at a variety of different demographic studies that talk about the decline of the college-age going student. There's fewer of them. And there's a lot of universities vying for them. The vision will help the university make strategic decisions that impact student learning. Every division will use the vision to develop and align priorities and innovations that map to students' learning and support needs. This is the work that we have in front of us. I had an idea and it'll come back to me. So you've seen this before, and I want to revisit this diagram. You saw this at the beginning of the semester. At the beginning of the semester, I mentioned that there's a lot of universities that I've been a part of who obsess about performance. All you hear about are the metrics. Are we enrolling students? Are we retaining? Are we graduating? And are we placing? And those are incredibly important. But what's more important is getting it right, is getting the learning systems and the support systems correct. If you put all your time and energy here, you're missing the whole purpose of why we exist. And we exist to develop students to their fullest potential. And we do that through a set of learning systems and support systems. It is time for us to revisit our learning systems and our support systems. And the visioning process will be our figuring out what does the student, the future student who's going to be coming to our institution, we're going to be doing a very clear needs assessment of who are the students who are coming into our university, what does our future look like? There's going to be fewer of them. The other thing that I think is important for us to think about is we can no longer bank on the incoming freshman class. We always have, that has always got to be first and foremost important to us, but there's more to your enrollment than the freshman class, because those numbers we know are going to be declining. And so we've got to be thinking about other ways of increasing our enrollment in addition to the traditional high school student who wants to go to college. We have got to augment the discrepancy or the gap because there's going to be fewer of them. And we've got to provide services, and we have to develop new innovative services, learning systems and support systems for the working professional, for the student who doesn't have a GED. I mean, there's a number of needs in our community that we need to be investigating, and we need to ask ourselves, how can we meet the needs of those populations? And those are going to look differently. They could be certificates. There's a variety of different types of credentialing that I believe we need to be looking into. So the freshman class is always going to be important. We have a residential university environment here that remains critical. But the math is working against us. That leaves a gap. We need to fill the gap by being innovative in developing new programming, online, graduate. We need to work on international enrollments. There's a variety of different other populations that we need to bring to our campus either to live here or to provide services, and I'm going to be needing your help. So I need everyone to expand their ideas of, we've got the traditional student, but we've got to look into more of a non-traditional set of services that are learning systems and support systems to support our region, the economic development of our region, workforce development, and professional credentialing that I believe we can do a role at. While doing that, it's always keeping in mind our pathways. It's and what I should probably add to this list would be the professional community. What I just said does not reflect, this reflects more of the traditional students. So I need to go back and to revise the pathways, because there's a number of working professionals who need additional training. The other day I was talking with Russ DeSilvo out at the depot, and he said, do you have a certificate in project management? And I said, we don't. But project management could be a certificate that we offer. It's not content-based. It doesn't require, you can come with any major, any background, but you get a certificate in how to manage projects. It would be something I would be interested in, and I think a lot of people would be interested in it. But it will come, those ideas will come out of the visioning process. So the visioning process is to find the big idea for CSU Pueblo. Being known for things is the key idea, is the key to building a strong reputation. We need to identify what is real, rare, and relevant, which means it must be true, no other university can claim it, and it must resonate with the audience. The university leadership team spent time reading an article, actually a couple of articles, focusing on university visioning. This is a quote from one of those articles. Identify what is real, rare, and relevant. And that is going to come through a series of focus groups. For those of you who have been here a long time, and the narratives and the stories that you recall, we're going to be able to do a thematic analysis and an analysis of those stories and those narratives to find out what is real, rare, and relevant about our university. And ultimately, it will result in this. I would like for us to have this down to a single word. Where Colorado State University-Pueblo is the blank university. I don't want to obsess about this, but what's important is that this term is intuitive. It is real, it's rare, and it's relevant, and it describes, it pulls out the best and the core values and the strengths of our history and where we need to go. But it also has to have a heuristic value that we can unpack it, and it can be operationalized in a variety of different ways. And I'll give you an example of that. So it's got to be an elegant idea. It's got to be probably a pretty simple idea, but it's an idea that resonates with a large group of people, and there's ways in which we can make it real and bring it to fruition. What I do not want to do, this is more of a tagline. We don't start there. We start with the hard work, which is the data analysis. But I would like to get it down to this level eventually. Who's going to do this? We're going to need, because we've read the research on this, and the research suggests that you bring in someone who is an external to the university, who doesn't know the university all that well, who is objective. And so we are looking at using an external facilitator, allows one to challenge ideas and to offer external perspectives. An external facilitator can help extract the idea from employees' complex answers. And so we are looking at developing, through our procurement processes, a request for proposals where we would describe in a proposal what it is we are about to do, and where we request a professional facilitator or facilitators who could come to our campus and help us do this. Again, I'm funding this all through the monies that I received that were a part of that special assistant to the president. We are using those monies in a variety of different ways, and this particular person would be funded using those funds. This individual or individuals will work with Adam Pocius, Donna Souter, and Amy Robertshaw, and myself, and they will work with all of you, because we will be developing a series of focus groups and interviews in order for us to make this visioning process happen, which gets at the how again. You conduct a needs assessment, you identify core values, competencies and opportunities. You collect and analyze data, focus groups and workshops. You recommend and you validate concepts. For those of you, the faculty in the audience who've done qualitative research or ethnographic styles of research, it really follows the methodology of an ethnographer or of a qualitative researcher, where you collect large amounts of data and you do more of a thematic and a deep dive where you analyze it. When we hire the facilitator will submit to us 4 different documents. One is a detailed description of the vision with a complete rationale. Here's how it was developed. Here's why we think it's a good vision. They will have an implementation plan, a communication plan, and the funds needed to implement the vision. The goal here is to do this throughout the spring semester, collect the data. We will do the analysis during the summer. When a lot of people are gone, we will do the analysis. When we come back for the fall meeting, we will then test drive a vision. We will pilot test a vision. We will introduce it to this group. We will get feedback. We will revise it. And the goal here is for me to take it to the Board of Governors along with the budget request sometime in October or November, December, the latter part of the fall semester. This is something that we're going to do. When I was hired, I was hired with the goal of transforming the university. And I was asked to develop a bold vision for this university that our Board of Governors could get behind and that they could fund. And this is what we're going to be doing, but I'm going to be needing your help to do this, obviously, along with Donna, Adam, and Amy, and our facilitator. Right now, we have a vision that is on our website. I should be able to ask you to recite the vision, and I don't know if I can even do that. In fact, I know I can't do that. We also have a mission statement, and I don't know if I could get that right either. And I've studied both of those. And we have a set of core values. I think I could do better on that. It is time for us to look at that. And when this is said and done, we need a vision statement, which is where we're going. And in 5 years, the goal here is for us to be nationally recognized as an institution that has transformed in terms of our how do we work with our students, our learning systems, and our support systems. We've got to get that right for the students that we need to serve. We are an Hispanic serving institution, and we are an institution that needs to continue to serve the students of Pueblo, Colorado, in addition to all the students that we bring to our university. But we are regional comprehensive. We've got to return to what does it mean to be a regional comprehensive university and to serve the students of our region. And it would be nice for us to have a vision and a mission statement, 10 words or less, that is incredibly impactful, that inspires us, that we remember, that guides us and allows us to align and to develop priorities. And for me, it's got to have an inspirational component. When you talk about our vision and our mission, it's got to connect with the DNA of who we are, but it's got to inspire us. It's got to move us forward. And David Volk at our meeting mentioned something. He is on the Board of Governors. He is a chair of music, also a member of the university leadership team. And he mentioned at our last university leadership team, he said, we have an opportunity to do something great, and the time is now for us to do this. And I know that many of you have been through this before, and I don't know where it led to. But I've heard that it didn't lead maybe where you wanted it to go. I'm here today to tell you we're going to be driving this process, and come the fall semester, we're going to have a vision. And with your help, I need a vision that you can be excited about, that we can all get behind, that will define who it is we're going to be and become. I'm giving you an example of what we did at Northwest Missouri State University because it's what I know and it's what I did. We went through this activity at Northwest, and it came down to this. Northwest Missouri State University is the profession-based learning university. That's where we landed. And we got around this concept of profession-based learning, where we conceptualized it. We defined what does it mean to be profession-based learning. We defined it, and then as the provost of that institution, I pulled the faculty, the academic staff together, and we had to operationalize. How do we bring this and make it real? And we did that. We developed these 4 big initiatives. The initiatives are profession-based curriculum and instruction. The curriculum looks different as a result of becoming profession-based learning. So there were many modifications to the curriculum that are ongoing. Profession-based learning center and leadership academy. That is something that is under development. It's a leadership academy, and it's a center for profession-based learning. Student learning spaces. That's a big driver on the campus. Every space on the campus has got to be designed to enhance learning. So if you're a faculty member in a classroom and there's a pillar in front of you that is not serving your best interest, we need to find ways around that. We need environments on the campus. At Northwest Missouri, too many students were sitting in hallways. I saw them sitting on floors. They would gather in hallways and in these areas. And we started working with an architect who took these naturally occurring places where students sit on the floor, and we created learning spaces outside of the classroom. So you go to where students are, you study where students sit. Where do they study? And you create environments around that. That's what we did for student learning spaces. And then faculty development. If you want profession-based learning, you've got to develop faculty. What does it mean to be a profession-based learning faculty member? This is the work of academic affairs. Then you would go into athletics, you would go into student affairs, you would go into the foundation, you go into every division. They are responsible for taking the definition of profession-based learning and developing what does it mean for our work. And this has all got to be aligned around a vision. When this is all done, then you develop the marketing plan. And then when that's done, you develop the enrollment management plan. And you begin to sell this concept and this idea. But this is the work that took place over a semester and a summer, and I'm basically replicating that process. We're not going to end up here. We will end up someplace else. I have not a clue where we're going to end up through the visioning process. That is not going to be coming from me or anyone else. It's going to be coming from the men and women in this room today. But it's got to be intuitive, it's got to be inspiring, and it's got to be defining, and it's got to differentiate us in the higher education marketplace in the state of Colorado. When you think of Colorado State University-Pueblo, parents and students say, this is the university, they do this well. And they've got a brand, and they've got a concept. But this is an example of what that looks like. So that's the work that we're going to be doing this semester. We have not hired the facilitator. I've got the presidential fellows. We're working on the RFP, the request for proposals, that'll go through Geraldine and the procurement office. It'll go out. We will hire the appropriate person who is skilled to do this work. That person will be vetted, and then we will begin developing a timeline. And our goal is on January 22nd for us to meet, block our calendars, and begin planning on how we're going to make this happen. It's messy work, but it's important work, and it's also exciting work. And it's when you get the group behind it, it becomes very exciting. So with that said, I'm going to transition. That's the work of Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is compensation. Chapter 2 is the regional enrollment management plan, where we re-enter Pueblo and southern Colorado. People know who we are and what we're doing. And then this visioning will really refine it. And then we will have another launch of a marketing campaign that captures the visioning process. But that is all going to require resources, and that is where we go to the Board of Governors for a request. And that is something that I am looking forward to doing with a vision that comes from the men and women of this institution. So at this point, I'd like to give our new provost an opportunity to speak with you about some of his ideas. I'd like to introduce Bruce Raymond. I've worked with him now for 6 months, but I looked at his resume more closely and learned much about Bruce Raymond. Bruce started his undergraduate at the Brigham Young University. I did not know this, but got a Bachelor of Science in Physics. He started off in physics and realized that wasn't the path for him, and continued on and got a PhD and an MBA in management from the University of Utah. Got it? Okay. After he finished out his degree there, he started teaching at the University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh. He was there for a couple years, went to the Midwest. He realized he wanted to go back west, went to Montana State, where he earned tenure at Montana State University. He also became the Associate Dean of the College of Business at Montana State. And in 2012, we were lucky to attract him to our institution, and he's been the Dean of the Hassan School of Business since that time, and has elevated that college to what it is today, which we're very proud of. And so I'm proud to have Bruce as the interim provost. It's important for me that a provost works really closely with the president. It's a tag team. When the president's gone, the provost steps in. And so the partnership between a provost and a president, like the one I had with Rick and the one that I will have with Bruce, will be very strong. So I'd like to introduce Bruce Raymond, who will offer a few words. If you help me welcome him. Thank you.
I wanted to introduce myself briefly by just talking a little bit about my thoughts about the spring semester. So you'll note that the president has really done a masterful job of helping us to conceptualize what we're going to do together in Chapter 2. And that would be my first comment, is that I really appreciate his commitment to the visioning process. Before I jump into just 1 or 2 minutes of my thoughts about the spring semester, I wanted to thank you all for attending. So I know that coming to the campus early on a really cold winter day and finding your way here to Hogue Hall is not your normal routine, and I appreciate you being here. So thank you. We really have great attendance, and I think that speaks volumes about your level of interest in Chapter 2 and your level of interest in moving the campus forward. So I am going to talk about these items on the screen, but first I wanted to briefly tell you about a recent lecture I attended by, the name was Salim Ismail, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Singularity University. He talked about what is the current environment for higher ed, what are we seeing in our industry and in our marketplace regarding technology, regarding innovation, and he has a portion of his staff that work on technology and trends in technology, and he talked a lot about artificial intelligence, robotics, biotech, sensors, neuroscience, medicine, and networking. And he described a concept he called accelerating technologies. And accelerating technologies are associated with dramatic increases in capacity coupled with dramatic decreases in cost per unit. And so the first example he gave, which all of us have heard of many times, is Moore's Law in computing, that I believe it's roughly every 2 years, the capacity of microprocessors increased by some predictable amount. And that because of this, computing became something that went from, those of you that have taken that first computing class know that the first computers were big room-sized things with lots of vacuum tubes in them, to what's in your pocket today is a more powerful computer than a computer that used to fill a whole room. It's also, by the way, more vulnerable because of networking and the internet and networks, which is in the news recently. But anyway, he highlighted what's happening, and the implications for higher ed are really dramatic. And he gave a few examples of industries where technological change had had a big impact. And so these things are actually very common in our life. How many of us knew that we would all be pumping our own gas, and yet self-serve gas is sort of what we do now? How many of us thought of ourselves as paying our bills over the internet or getting money through an ATM, and yet those processes are very, 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 very different than they would have been 20 or 30 years ago. Similarly, he suggested that in higher ed we should think deeply about what does higher ed look like, and will it be the same even just 5 years from now? And so I'd like to introduce the concepts that higher ed is very likely to be something that's available anywhere, anytime, at a very low cost. Anywhere, anytime, at a very low cost. And if we hold too aggressively to a model that we were raised with as students in higher ed, or that we've been used to as faculty and or professionals in higher ed, we may very well have troubles in this marketplace. So he's described, for example, universities that are developing in the third world that will provide quality, rigorous, credentialed higher ed for 1/10 of the cost of what we're doing today. And so I think we should think a little bit about, oh, I guess I'm close to retirement, that's all okay. That's somebody else's problem. Or not, we would say to ourselves, oh, what would it take for us to compete in this new marketplace? So I'm excited to say that in this sort of emerging marketplace, we probably have some great advantages. Our great advantage is that we are smaller. So we're an example of the notion that bigger is not always better. Sometimes being smaller makes you more, and I want to use these right words, nimble, personal, flexible, responsive, and collaborative. So those words are going to be important to me this semester. Nimble, personal, flexible, responsive, and collaborative. So I hope you'll think a little bit about that today when you go back to your office. It's a great thing to ask yourself every day, what is it I need to do today to help the university to be successful in the coming semester, to be successful in the coming year, to be successful in the coming decade? What can I do to be more successful today? And I would argue that these things apply in your office, in the work that you do, in the same way that they can apply to us as an entire campus. And so I'm not going to go through all this. I'm on a time frame here. But I hope you'll see that interacting with each other in a more collaborative way, I like to talk to people that work with me about cultural development and the way we treat each other and the way we interact with each other. That can apply across the entire institution. It is scalable. Being nice works. It works to be nice to each other. It works to be nice to your students. It works to be nice to the people you work with. But these words are sort of my definition of being nice. And then the president mentioned that we'll be developing a tagline, so I don't want to suggest this as the campus tagline, but my tagline for the spring semester will be your first choice. I have tons and tons and tons of community interactions. I'm deeply involved with many community organizations, and I've had more than one person tell me that USC was defined to be the university of second choice. That I find to be something that I abhor. I am not the provost of the University of Second Choice. So I'd like to be the first choice of many, many, many students. And so that means we have to have something here that attracts people. We have to have something that people say, I thought the president defined it perfectly, we are the university of, and there's something that we're known for, and I'm excited about working on a visioning process. So then there's a couple of other things you can see here, my priorities or goals for objectives for the semester. These, by the way, are associated with really, I would call them tasks or assignments from the president, coupled with a few things that I think we can do right away. I'd like to be known as a place where we know what we're doing in the classroom. That somehow I think has to come out in our vision, and you've heard the president mention that. I'd like to be known as a place where we're completely competent, where we know what we're doing, and when people walk away from an interaction with every one of us, they say, well, That was amazing. So I know each of you have had that experience. You'll have an interaction, I call them service interactions, in a bank or in a grocery store or in a restaurant, and you walk away from the interaction thinking, that was truly amazing. I'm so grateful I had that interaction. I hope that you will think of yourself that way when you have an interaction with each other, with our students, with our constituents and stakeholders from the community. Obviously, we'd like to attract more students right now. I believe our high was 5,200 students in less than 6 years ago, and we're down to around 4,000 students, more than a 20% decline. So that's a pretty scary thing. If that continues, the campus is really threatened. So I think we should have a sense of urgency at this campus. I'd like to see the Institute of Cannabis Research be dramatically successful, and I certainly would like to thank Dr. Rick Krzeminski and the other members of the steering committee. The first year was really astounding. Every time I would come away from a steering committee, someone will have announced, oh, Dr. so-and-so from Israel is going to be the first Meshulam lecturer, and you're thinking, whoa, how did this happen? Really through the hard work of Dr. Krzeminski and others on the steering committee. I think that's in good hands. And then finally, a couple of things that came out in my early conversations with deans and other constituents is that we would love to have really solid and dependable physical and information infrastructure. So I'm excited about working with each of you, and we're going to have a really great spring semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Bruce. That brings us to the end of our session today of Chapter 2. Where have we been? We've talked about transitions and the new presidential fellows. We talked about Chapter 1, the Jumpstart Initiatives. There's 20 of them. They're ongoing. We continue to work on those. And then Chapter 2, again, it's managing compensation, regional enrollment management, and facilitate a visioning process. And we heard from our new provost. There's 2 individuals that I still wanted to recognize today for the work that they are doing and they have done. One is Nicky Whittaker, who is the executive assistant to the president. I'm using her in ways that are clear outside of her job description, only because I can, because she's got the abilities. But Nicky is helping me on some high-level, sensitive issues around the free speech issues on our campus. We've got a free speech a task force that's working on how do we enhance free speech, civil discourse, and do that where we ensure safety on the campus. She's facilitating a faculty group who is putting together a group of recommendations. Those will be coming to me soon, I'm assuming. And then the second one that she's working on is the importance of the military on our campus. And we are working hard to become a Purple Heart University. And we are poised to be the first Purple Heart University in the state of Colorado. And I've got a number of individuals who are working on we are military friendly, but we need to become more military friendly around all of us having a greater understanding about how do we work with military individuals who have been in combat, are coming back. What is it that we need to know? What is the education and the development that we need? And so Nicky has been working with a group of veterans, students, and a variety of individuals and pulling together a set of recommendations. So I want to thank her for the enormous amount of work that she's doing outside of her job description. So a round of applause would be appreciated. The other one is, there's a gentleman in the back who just walked in by the name of Rick Gonzalez, who is my spouse. But Rick supports this university through volunteering in a variety of different ways. Whenever I have one of these sayings, it's time to sparkle, and that means we've got an event. And he's always right there, ready to go on whatever that is, and I appreciate his support that he gives me, but I need you to know that he's giving this university a lot of support in a variety of different ways. So thank you, Rick Gonzalez. That wraps up Chapter 2 and the opening of our spring semester. I would ask all of you to do what we do, which is to take very good care of our students, take very good care of each other, and take good care of our university. As I usually say, and I will say it again, I'm honored to be your president, and I look forward to working with you this semester. Thank you.